Welcome to this evening's Instagram live with Denisa Renson, who is a medical doctor, co-founder of Bless Designed, and she's also the co-curator of an upcoming summit called the Clitoris Summit, which is going to be held on Wednesday. Just waiting for Denisa to join. So it's going to be a summit which is going to include, I think, over 18 speakers from around the world, speaking about all things to do with the clitoris, the female anatomy that is designed solely for pleasure. Angelica Lindsay Ali, known as the Village Auntie, would also be speaking. The event is free from 9 a.m. Pacific time to 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is 5 p.m. UK time or British Standard Time to 3 a.m. Sunday morning. Hopefully Denise will be joining me shortly. But yeah, like I said, the summit is going to be on Saturday, so I want to speak to Denise about. Okay, she sent a request. It's a moment of truth. And I hope everyone is well and had a good. Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me
Hi,
okay?
Denise. I can hear you perfectly. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Great to be here with you.
Likewise. The weather. Where are you? It looks amazing background. You in a beach?
Yes, I'm in Cabo. I live in Cabo.
Cabo?
So
Is
it's
it
in
that?
Baja Peninsula
Oh,
by the
nice.
beach, by the ocean. Yeah, it's very beautiful here.
Oh, no, I'm actually jealous. I'm currently in London and the weather is miserable. So it's nice to see
Oh,
a beautiful backdrop.
oh,
It's really
I'm so
nice.
sorry. Yeah,
No
it's very
problem.
beautiful.
Lovely,
Okay.
lovely.
Okay, so let's dive in. Thank you so much for inviting me. You just spent a few minutes inviting everyone to the summit?
Yes, I just gave a very brief introduction, but do you mind giving a quick elevator pitch in terms of telling everyone who you are and the work that you do?
Welcome. I'm Denisa Renson. You can find me at Denisa Renson Instagram or Bliss Designed or here at clitoris.io or STEMaid. I am a medical director here at one of the most beautiful stem cell clinics in the world. And the curator of the summit and we are both key physicians here at STEMaid. And we are passionate about women's health and freedom and dignity and upholding women's right to pleasure as essentially very important for even the politics of the world. Uh, and so one day, a few months ago, my colleague came from her long drive from her ranch. She says, Denisa, we have to do a summit. I said, of course we have to do a summit. So we did a summit, and here it is. And it's international. It's amazing how everything has come together. Everyone's said yes, and we're going to have powerful conversations on the clitoris as a signifier for human freedom, human dignity, human pleasure. The clitoris is the one organ in our body that is designed solely for pleasure. The penis and the clitoris at their tissue origin come from the same place. But the penis developed other functions for survival and excretion and so on. But the clitoris just remains simply for pleasure. Some people argue it is for reproduction as well, but I think those are downstream effects from pleasure. When you have pleasure, then all the neurochemicals, bioenergetics, the vagus nerves all line up to help you conceive as well. However, the organ clitoris is truly designed for pleasure, and that's what we're going to celebrate in this summit. And of course, Habeeb's work is extremely important and very interesting. I've never come across the Kunyaza before as a strategy and philosophy. So I'd love to know more about what you're going to be talking about. Can't wait to learn. But please give me a little bit of lowdown of what you'd love to cover in the summit and what everybody can expect to hear from you.
Yeah, so hopefully I would like to speak about Kunyaza, like which you mentioned, and Islamic Erotology. Kunyaza being an ancient African technique which is dedicated to female pleasure. In summary, you could say it's a clitoris tapping technique where the man uses his penis to
Mm-hmm.
strike, stimulate, and rub the female genitalia, mainly focus on the clitoris in order to elicit pleasure, which with a lot of women results in either climax or squirted. So I'm not only going to speak about the technique itself, but also the history behind it and the phenomenal African women in particular who've been teaching this tradition for hundreds of years and been passing it down from woman to woman, as well as teaching men from a young age the importance of the female anatomy. And I also want to celebrate, again, not only the technique, but the pioneers behind it and the culture, the pleasure positive culture in East and Central Africa, and how it empowers women, not only in the African continent, but in different parts around the world. So it's something which I'm kind of, I'm looking forward to it. And again, I'm looking forward to speaking about the cultural impact, because I think it's something which, because generally when we hear about Africa and we hear about, especially in terms of sexuality, we hear about a lot of the unfortunate or the barbaric practices like female genital mutilation and what have you. When there are a number of pleasure positive female affirming practices which we don't generally hear about. And I think it's important to amplify the positive voices of African people, especially African women, because generally, even in my studies or research, when I'm hearing about sexuality and pleasure, it generally starts from ancient Europe or ancient India with the Kama Sutra. Then you might hear about ancient Europe. Then you might hear about ancient China with the Taoist tradition, but you generally do not hear much about the positive contributions of Black and African people or even Arab people. And that's where I'm trying to fill that void, so to speak, in some cases where people can hear about the positive contributions of many Black, African and Arab people that they've contributed towards sexuality, whether it's in the Kunyaza tradition or in the Islamic Erotology tradition, erotology being the study of sex, desire and eroticism. So but that's enough of me. I'm sure people who are on this side are probably familiar with my work. I kind of want to hear more about what inspired you. I know you touched on it briefly with your colleague that you wanted to do a summit, but my understanding that this is the first world or global summit that's dedicated to the clitoris. Why do you think that is, given its importance?
Oh, why do you think it's a great question? I wish I had my colleague Brigitte to answer that question. She's been helping women in Africa to receive reconstructive clitoris surgery for many years through an organization. And I don't know exactly the details of how she's worked with that. You will hear probably more about that when you are in the summit. But for me, I've always personally been an advocate for inspiring women to live more in their bliss and their eros, because these are very natural, empowering, beautifying frequencies that get us through all the tough times in life. So bliss and eros have always been in my work as a physician, as a creator and an author as well. And to me, these conversations are normal, but I realize more and more how stunted this dialogue is still in the world, and that's really astounding, especially when we see how little physicians receive in education in clitoral anatomy. And we will have a speaker there, Jessica Penn, who actually has gone through clitoral mutilation through a labiaplasty. I mean, you think about this is only happening in Africa. No, this is happening in the States and other places in the world as well, because surgeons just don't know the anatomy properly, and they underestimate how important that dorsal nerve of the clitoris is. And when they're doing these reconstructive surgeries, sometimes they snip parts that should not be snipped, and then the woman doesn't have clitoral stimulation possibilities into the future unless she has a reconstructive surgery. But I actually don't even know how they would repair that nerve. You know, we do injections of exosomes and stem cells into the clitoris here, and we see a lot of repair and rejuvenation happening. And these are the conversations that we're going to have. So overall, it's just kind of really normalizing this anatomy, elevating this anatomy as a kind of like the statue of liberty of the human, not just for the woman, but this is ours, you know. At some point in utero, I developed a clitoris and you developed a penis, but we come from the same tissue. At the core, that's true equality of the human. So we celebrate that and kind of have, look at the dignity of the human and the beauty and the lightness of being at the same time, and how that's, a lot of times not respected, bastardized in society out of fear and so on. So The inspiration came from a medical standpoint, it came from a cultural standpoint, it came from a standpoint as a mother and a woman in the world. And I can't wait to have these conversations with men and women who've been designing cliteracy for decades. I didn't even know this was an issue until about a year ago, that was like the cliteracy wasn't happening in the world. To me, it's always been a part of my conversations, very normal. So we're just going to normalize it and beautify it and make it super yummy and elegant and sexy and fun. Yeah.
And just for the benefit of people who may not use a couple of phrases that people might not be familiar with, can you explain or define what you mean by cliteracy?
Cliteracy comes, as a fun twist on literacy. We are trying to make the world literate, have people reading and understanding how to read, and so that they can read the papers and the books and communicate with each other. What cliteracy is, our understanding, ability to speak about openly, intelligently, internationally about the clitoris and its anatomy and its place in culture, its place in politics, its place in democracy. And that's what it really means. Cliteracy, literacy. It's very cute, huh?
It is. Again, I just wanted to make it plain because I know there's some people that might not know what it is. So I think it's just important just to define what the term meant. Also, is there, because I did receive a couple of messages, someone asked me, is the event open to men or is it just for women?
Oh, everyone. This is a human conversation, so it's for everyone.
Yeah. And as kind of like a sales pitch, what would you say, what would you like to be the key takeaways people are going to take away from the event or the summit?
Great question. Well, this is a nonprofit event. There are no sponsors. This is really pure volunteer based. We've spent hundreds of hours, me and my colleagues, putting this together ourselves, even the website and the Facebook page and the Insta. We've kind of pulled it all ourselves with a small team of volunteer women, amazing, from all over the world, France, Sweden, Italy, Cabo, Vegas. So there is nothing to sell, really. This is essentially to kickstart the conversation from a very elegant angle, from very intelligent angle, from non-combative angle. We're not interested in, of course, we are going to expose the difficulties that the clitoris has had in receiving proper attention, but not really dwell on it, really going, so where do we go from now? What can we all do? What can you do as an individual to make sure that your surgeon that's about to do a labiaplasty on you has read the right papers, or in his textbook or in his medical app? When I do injections, I check a medical app all the time to make sure, where's the innovation if I don't know an area? So a surgeon should this, and it's not in the medical apps. The proper innovation is not there, and you'd be surprised. You're not going to let a surgeon touch you if they don't know the proper innovation of the area. So what can you do as a civilian? And you can do things to make sure that the publishers of these textbooks and these medical apps and these journals are up on this, that this is serious. And what's the takeaway? Really, the beauty of this conversation is all about how it is a signifier for human dignity, freedom, and pleasure. And pleasure is a human right, and it stands on its own with the support of clitoral anatomy, physiology, and where it is in the human body. And I say human, not just woman, because this is our organ. We share this. I mean, it's just so sweet when we can just stop the gender divisions and say we came from the same place. At a certain point in utero, we had one tissue, and yours went one way and mine went another way, but we share the same origin. And clitoris really signifies that, especially how it's related to pleasure, human pleasure. And human pleasure needs to be upheld in this time in history. What's going on in the world right now is challenging human freedom, dignity, depleting pleasure, rendering people numb and scared, and that's not fair to the human. So we're going to just shake that up a little bit with these conversations and just have a great time. Just join us at any point in the day. Make sure you come see Habeeb's talk, but do join some of the other talks that kind of ring like it's really an interesting angle for you. Everything is on clitoris.io/summit page, so you can find all the information there and just pick and choose, or just come for the whole day. Order in food, get a bottle of wine, or have some tea and just sit back with us. We'll be there all day.
Again, just for the benefit of anyone joining late, so the Clitoris Summit is the first summit dedicated purely to the clitoris. It's going to be held online this Saturday, the 22nd of May, from 9 a.m. Pacific time to 7 p.m. Pacific time. The equivalent in terms of the UK or British Standard Time, that's from 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. Sunday morning. So from 5 p.m. on Saturday to 3 a.m. Is the event going to be recorded, just in case someone might not be able to listen to or meet some of the presentations?
Yes. It will be recorded, but do sign up so you receive the recordings. That's the key. Come into the conversation. We're going to have, past this, we're already planning a film festival and some other events. So keep a part of the conversation. Of course, we're not going to be flooding your email boxes every day or every week, just in time for really cool events. So do sign up for it, and then we will inform you of the release and links for the talks and for future events. Maybe you can make a film, enter the film festival, and win a prize. Those are the yummy things ahead.
Lovely. And again, the Instagram page is clitoris also spelled clitoris.io, and also the website is clitoris.io, and all the information about the speakers and the sign-up details are on the website, so definitely check that out. You mentioned labiaplasty and how it's practiced in the West. Again, just for the benefit of anyone who's not familiar with what that surgical procedure is, could you explain what labiaplasty is and why there's an increase in a lot of young girls and women undergoing that procedure in the Western world, from your experience or in America?
Yes. Well, I'm a Gen X gal, so I didn't have those pressures back in the days when I was in my 20s. But right now it looks like women, millennial, maybe not even the millennial, maybe it is some Gen X women are feeling that they need to have pussy lifts. Yeah. And that comes from, gosh, I don't even know from where, but I can't wait to hear about it. I think Jessica Pinn will be covering it. Dr. Marcy Bowers will be covering it. Dr. Jade McGaff will be covering it. I'm eager to learn, but I have had patients who've had labiaplasty just like they've had facelifts. And they have scar tissue. And this is essentially either, reconstructing the labial folds, reconstructing the clitoral folds so that it looks really, I don't know, I think they call it rejuvenative, but Jessica Pinn would argue you should not call this rejuvenative. There's nothing rejuvenative about this. Is plastic surgery. This is not rejuvenation. There's a lot of scar tissue that happens. And so I've had patients that I've been injecting the exosomes into the scar tissue, and it softens. But to me, it's kind of like a facelift, pussy lift. So some women just feel that their vulva is not as beautiful as they wish it to be. And where are these standards coming from? I have no idea. I can't wait to learn. You tell me.
I think from the little research that I've done and a few people that I've spoken to, some women included, who have undergone this procedure, I think a lot of it stems from feelings that their genitalia vulva is not beautiful, is not pleasing, and they want to kind of recreate this kind of designer vagina or Barbie doll vagina. Yeah. That's what it's kind of colloquially called. And I think maybe one of the reasons is because a number of women do not see what a quote unquote normal vulva looks like, because
Right.
a lot of women, apart from their own vulva, are only exposed to what they see in porn, which is kind of very doctored look.
Right. Yeah.
So if
Or
you've got this perception of
mm,
and again, I'll use a vulva, but most people use the word vagina, it's supposed to look like what they see in porn, which is symmetrical and it's quote unquote perfect. With symmetrical lips, that's what they're trying to attain that look. And I think even when I speak to men, they have similar issues with their female partners that a lot of women feel uncomfortable about the way they look down in terms of their genitalia because of what they've been exposed to and they've not seen normal, healthy vulvas, how they come in different shapes and sizes. So where the male genitalia has been normalized when it comes to different shapes and sizes, I don't think that's necessarily the case with a lot of women when it comes to their genitalia or their vulva. So that's why they're trying to, a number of them, I think, are trying to attain this perfect look, so to speak. And it's quite
mm-hmm.
interesting because, in parts of Africa like Rwanda and Uganda and Kenya, where Kunyaza is widely practiced, they have, in addition to the Kunyaza practice, they've got another controversial practice called Labia Elongation, where
Oh, yes.
in their culture, they believe long labia lips is actually more aesthetically pleasing and more attractive than to have the so-called tucked symmetrical lips, which a lot of people in the West are kind of going for. So it's just quite
Mm-hmm.
interesting. In one culture, women are manually elongating their labia to make it more longer and more beautiful in
Uh-huh.
their eyes and their male partner's eyes. Whereas in the Western culture, it's like the opposite. This idea you need to have a very, a, like a childlike lips, and that's unfortunately the look
Yeah.
that
Oh.
even
Yeah. Oh,
even
yeah.
the
That
people
sounds really awful,
culture.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which is and that's quite problematic. And I think it's
And
because we don't see normal, or a lot of people aren't exposed to what a normal vulva looks
mm,
like. So that's why, yeah, like I do agree with what you mentioned about even some terms are quite problematic, like rejuvenated and things like that, because then it's this idea that
yes.
you're correcting something when in reality the vulva is intentionally supposed to be unique and it looks different and it comes in different shapes and sizes. But maybe because even if you look at a lot of medical textbooks, the genitalia you see is always symmetrical, it's always kind of perfectly looking, so to speak. So because of
Mm,
that, if that's what you're exposed to, then that's obviously if you've got asymmetrical lips and things like that, or your inner lips is obviously protruding, then naturally you might think that I need to do something about it, but there's something wrong. Or you might have an ignorant partner who might be saying something derogatory about a woman's genitalia and can make her feel insecure. So there's a number of factors, but it's quite interesting that I don't think a lot of women were under the same amount of pressure as they are in Generation Z and millennials, like you mentioned. I
yeah.
think maybe 50 years ago, maybe they didn't have this pressure because they wasn't exposed to what
Mm,
the so-called vulva or vagina is supposed to look like. So it's quite interesting to see how this phenomenon, and even in the West, unfortunately, even like surgeries like labiaplasty is not considered to be genital mutilation when it is actually a form of exercising or mutilating the genitalia, but it's not considered to be mutilation when it's practiced in the West. Whereas some practices which are done in Africa and Asia, whether it's for cultural, religious, or what have you reasons, that's
uh-huh.
automatically defined as FGM when the similar practice is done in the West because it's labeled as cosmetic for cosmetic reasons. Then all of a
Mm,
sudden it's a woman's choice. So that's why it's always interesting to see how different vaginal practices, how they're labeled or considered differently depending on who the people are undertaking these kind of procedures. So, but I'm interested to hear what some of the speakers have got to say as well about that and their experiences, because I think, like what you
yes.
said earlier about the importance of normalizing, and I think that's probably the key takeaway for me anyway. Normalizing not only discussions but normalizing like you said, the human anatomy, not just the woman's anatomy. But in this case, we're mainly speaking about women. So I think that's what I've told people when they've asked me what it's about. I said it's about normalizing. It shouldn't be strange, but it is nowadays because we don't have many such conferences. So that's why I take my hat off to you for putting this together, you and your team. But
Thank you.
again, I just think that's one of the important things that we can try and normalize this conversation and people can understand, appreciate, and celebrate the clitoris. Is there anything else that maybe I've left out? I'm just thinking before. I want to keep it short and sweet, but also let people know what the key takeaways are. I don't want to give too much away because you need to come on Saturday. But is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Well, Yeah, well, the conversations will be along the entire spectrum from medical anatomy to medical reconstruction to even we even have a transgendered physician coming in and we'll be talking about, well, how do you actually create a clitoris? That's fascinating to me. To the artists that are coming, to the erotologists like Habeeb and sexologists from all over the world. So it's the full spectrum conversation. And if we missed some areas of the spectrum of this conversation, you know, we're going to continue these dialogues along the way. So we normalize this beautiful, topic, and women can feel at ease to have these discussions over coffee wherever they are in the world, Muslim world, Christian world, cosmic world, doesn't matter. So we're all about openness and democratizing the clitoris. Yes.
Yes, I like
Can't
that.
wait to see.
No,
So we'll
no,
see you there.
no,
Clitoris.io/summit. Sign up. You'll receive links to the talks if you can't attend some of them. And we're going to continue this conversation. And also check out the journal article that Habeeb was kind enough to pass in to us about the Kunyaza. That was really insightful, nice and swift and to the point. And I have to say, Habeeb, you've been one of the most elegant guys to communicate with. You've always, whatever I asked of you, you just prepared it in such a beautiful, elegant way. I was like, wow, this guy has style. So thank you so much.
no, no worries. Thank you for inviting me. And again, I look forward to the event on Saturday. And again, I'll be doing what I can to help promote it. And again, kudos to you for the work that you're doing and just keep it up. That's the only thing I would say.
Well, thank you for having us. See you there.
No worries. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And anyone listening, I'll put the link, the Instagram handle with details after. I'm going to try and save this live so I don't mess this up. Lord have mercy. Before I forget, I've also got another Facebook Live on Thursday with Pallavi Barnwell, who is a certified intimacy coach from India. I'm going to be speaking about Kunyaza, and also I've got a couple of webinars because some people have been messaging me. I've got a webinar on the 12th of June as women's only. It's about Kunyaza, which is going to be a bit more thorough and more in detail. That's going to be for 2.5 hours. It's going to be on the 12th of June. The link is on my Instagram page. And then I've got another webinar. The one on 12th of June is for women only. Then I've got another webinar on the 26th of June for both men and women, but it's about sex addiction and womanizing and how to manage sexual desire with integrity. So that's also available if you want to check that out on Eventbrite. And then I have a third webinar on the 17th of July called The Female Orgasm in Islam and Muslim Cultures. It's called The Female Orgasm in Islam and Muslim Cultures, where I'll be delving into female sexual pleasure, not only in the Islamic tradition, but also how it's being perceived in different Muslim cultures from the 7th century, from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the early Muslim generations up until recent times, and how different Muslim cultures and scholars have understood and some rulings. And yes, I'm going to go into female pleasure, female masturbation, sexually empowered women in Muslim history, from including some companions, female scholars, up until recent figures such as Angelica Nancy Ali and stuff like that. So you can check that out. Again, that's going to be on Eventbrite. So The Female Orgasm in Islam and Muslim Culture, check that out. So they're 3 webinars I've got coming up. Thank you, everyone who's joined. I'm going to try and save this now, if I can. How do I end this thing?